The red light above the studio door turned on. Live. Ethan Cole leaned toward the microphone with a smile polished by years of broadcasting. His voice carried the confidence of a man who believed the world was finally bending in his favor. "Tonight," he said, "I'm going to surprise the woman I love." The control room erupted in cheers. His producer, Marcus, pressed a hand to his headset and grinned through the glass. The late-night audience spammed the livestream with hearts, wedding rings, and declarations that Ethan was the last loyal man alive. Ethan laughed softly. He had planned everything. The flowers waiting backstage, the diamond ring hidden inside his jacket, the reservation at the rooftop restaurant where he intended to propose after the show. Even the call itself had been arranged as a perfect viral moment. His girlfriend, Vanessa Hale, thought he was interviewing a celebrity tonight. She had no idea millions of listeners were about to hear him confess that she had saved him from the darkest years of his life. At least that was the story Ethan had believed. He tapped Vanessa's name on the studio screen. The phone rang once. Twice, 3 times, someone answered. But it was not Vanessa. A man's breath came through the speakers, slow, heavy, close to the phone. Then a deep voice muttered, "Baby, who's calling this late?" The studio froze. Marcus stopped smiling. The audience chat exploded so quickly that the messages blurred into a white river. Ethan did not move. His hand remained suspended above the console. For one terrible second, his mind refused to understand what his ears had heard. Then Vanessa's voice appeared in the background. Panicked. "Don't answer that." The stranger chuckled. Too late, the call ended. Silence swallowed the studio. Ethan stared at the black screen. His heartbeat struck his ribs like a hammer. Someone in the control room whispered a curse. Marcus gestured wildly, telling him to cut to music. Ethan ignored him. He called again. The line went straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Voicemail. The live stream numbers climbed. Millions were watching. Millions had heard another man call his girlfriend baby. Millions were waiting for Ethan to break. Vanessa had always said she hated public humiliation. Tonight she had fed him to it. A message appeared on his phone. It came from her. "Please don't make this worse." Ethan read it once, then again. His fingers became cold. He remembered the nights she had cried against his chest, claiming everyone abandoned her. He remembered paying her mother's hospital bills. He remembered giving Vanessa access to his apartment, his accounts, his contacts, in every vulnerable corner of his life. He remembered how she had kissed him that morning, how she had looked into his eyes and said she could not wait to become his wife. The ring inside his jacket suddenly felt heavier than a bullet. Marcus rushed into the studio. "We need to stop the show." Ethan slowly looked up. His face was pale, his eyes were calm, too calm. "No," he said. Marcus lowered his voice. "Brother, everyone heard it. I know. We can delete the replay. We can issue a statement. We can say it was a prank." Ethan looked through the glass at the control room. Every employee avoided his gaze. Some looked ashamed for him. Others looked hungry. Hungry for the scandal. Hungry for clips. Hungry for the moment Ethan Cole collapsed in front of the world. He had seen that hunger before. Years ago. Back when he was a poor intern carrying coffee for men who laughed at his cheap shoes. Back when Vanessa had been nothing more than the ambitious daughter of a failed talent manager. They had built their lives together, or so he thought. Ethan removed the diamond ring from his jacket. The cameras zoomed in. The chat erupted again. He placed the ring on the desk beside the microphone. Then he smiled. It was not the smile of a heartbroken man. It was thin, cold, sharp enough to draw blood. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan said, "it appears the surprise was mine." Marcus stared at him. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Let's take a commercial break." The red light went dark. The studio exploded into noise. Producers shouted, phones rang. Assistants rushed across the floor. Ethan remained seated, his screen filled with notifications. His name was already trending. Clips of the call spread across every platform. Some viewers pitied him. Others mocked him. Memes appeared before the first commercial ended. A famous gossip account posted the recording with a caption asking whether the nation had just witnessed the most brutal betrayal in broadcasting history. Vanessa called. Ethan watched her name flash. He declined. She called again. Declined. A third call came from an unknown number. He answered. The same male voice spoke. "You should stop calling her." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" The man laughed. "Someone she actually respects." Marcus moved closer, trying to hear. The stranger continued. "She's been tired of pretending with you. You're useful, Ethan. That's all you ever were." A woman whispered behind him. "Vanessa, give me the phone." There was a brief struggle. Then her voice arrived. "Ethan, listen to me." He said nothing. "This isn't what it sounds like." He glanced at the ring on the desk. It sounded like a man in your bed. "You weren't supposed to call tonight." The words escaped her before she could stop them. The studio around Ethan vanished. All he heard was that sentence. Not a denial, not an explanation. A complaint about timing. Vanessa inhaled sharply. I was going to explain how long. She hesitated. That hesitation cut deeper than the answer. How long? Ethan repeated. A few months. The man in the background laughed again. Vanessa snapped at him to shut up. Ethan's gaze moved to the studio glass. His reflection stared back. A successful broadcaster, a trusted public figure, a man wearing a custom suit worth more than his father once earned in a year. Yet beneath all of it stood the same abandoned boy who had watched his mother beg his father not to leave. Vanessa knew that wound. She had pressed her fingers into it whenever she wanted something. She had promised she would never become the kind of person who betrayed him. Now she sounded irritated that he had discovered the truth too early. I need you to stay calm, she said. Your career is on the line. Ethan almost laughed. My career? If you attack me publicly, people will think you're unstable. The pieces slid together. Her confidence, her lack of fear, the stranger's arrogance. They were not improvising. They had prepared for this possibility. Perhaps not tonight, but soon. Vanessa had been planning to leave him. No, not merely leave him. Destroy him first. He opened the private banking application on his tablet. Several large transfers were pending. Transfers he had never authorized. The destination account belonged to a media investment company. Its director was Damien Cross. Ethan recognized the name immediately. Damien Cross was the son of the network chairman, a spoiled executive who had spent years trying to seize control of Ethan's program. Another notification appeared. His cloud storage had been accessed from Vanessa's laptop. Contracts, private recordings, unreleased interviews, confidential messages. Everything that could ruin him. Everything that could be edited, twisted, or leaked. Ethan finally understood. The call had not exposed a simple affair. It had interrupted a robbery. Vanessa and Damien were not only sleeping together. They were preparing to strip him of his show, his money, and his reputation. The pain inside Ethan changed shape. It did not disappear. It hardened. Grief became calculation. Humiliation became patience. Love became a corpse. He lowered his voice. She sounded relieved. Yes, I'm sorry. Marcus turned toward him in disbelief. Vanessa paused. For what? For frightening you. Her breathing softened. Ethan could almost see the smugness returning to her face. She believed he was surrendering. She believed the wounded dog was crawling back. I knew you'd understand, she said. We need to talk privately. Don't say anything on air. Damien has connections. He can protect your career if you cooperate. Damien spoke loudly enough to be heard. Tell him the show belongs to me after tonight. Ethan closed his eyes. Then he smiled again. Of course, Vanessa sighed. I'll come home tomorrow. No need, her voice tightened. What does that mean? It means you should enjoy tonight. Ethan ended the call. Marcus grabbed his shoulder. Why did you apologize? Because frightened people run. Ethan removed Marcus's hand. Confident people stay. He opened the network's internal archive. For years, Ethan had hidden one secret from everyone. Vanessa believed she had access to his entire life. She did not. Damien believed Ethan was only a talented voice with a loyal audience. He was wrong. Long before Ethan became famous, he had designed the station's original digital security architecture while working nights as a technician. The executives had forgotten. Ethan had not. Every studio call, every contract edit, every unauthorized download, every access request, every transfer approval. The system recorded them all in an invisible backup server Ethan alone controlled. It had begun as protection against corrupt producers. Tonight it became a blade. He entered a command. The hidden archive opened. Months of evidence appeared. Vanessa's messages with Damien. Their plans to frame Ethan for harassment. Their discussions about manufacturing fake recordings. Their agreement to transfer sponsorship rights after forcing him off the air. Their jokes about his childhood trauma. Their insults. Their laughter. Vanessa had written that Ethan was so desperate to be loved he would sign away his soul for a kiss. Damien had replied that they should make him propose publicly before destroying him. The ring on the desk gleamed beneath the studio lights. Ethan stared at it. So tonight had not been his idea alone. Vanessa had encouraged the live call. She wanted the proposal broadcast. She wanted footage of him offering her everything. Then she planned to release her accusations and portray herself as a terrified woman trapped by a controlling celebrity. The public humiliation was supposed to be his final cage. Instead, Damien's careless voice had cracked it open. Ethan copied the archive. One copy went to a private attorney. Another went to an investigative journalist who owed him a life-changing favor. A third went to a sealed account programmed to release everything if Ethan was arrested, fired, or harmed. Then he canceled the pending transfers. He revoked Vanessa's access. He froze every joint account. He changed the locks remotely. He removed her name from his insurance policies business trusts, and property permissions. Each happened without drama, without shouting, without tears, a quiet execution. Marcus watched the screen. His expression changed from confusion to horror. They were going to bury you. Ethan stood. No. His voice was flat. They were going to try. The commercial countdown approached its end. A makeup artist stepped forward, but Ethan raised a hand. He did not need powder. He did not need to hide the bloodless skin beneath his eyes. Let the world see the wound. Let Vanessa believe it was fatal. Let Damien celebrate. The red light turned on again. Millions of viewers waited. Ethan sat before the microphone. The ring remained beside him. He looked directly into the camera. "I owe everyone an apology," he said. Across the city, Vanessa watched from Damien's penthouse. She smiled. Damien poured champagne. They believed Ethan was about to protect them. They believed his weakness had won. Ethan touched the ring with one finger. "I promised a love story tonight." His smile deepened. What you heard was not a love story. The chat slowed. The entire audience leaned closer. It was a warning. Vanessa's smile vanished. Damien stopped pouring. Ethan continued. "Sometimes the cruelest voice is not the stranger speaking in the background." He lifted the ring. "It is the silence that follows, when you finally understand how long everyone has been laughing behind your back." He closed his fist around the diamond. But betrayal has one useful quality. His eyes became colder than the glass between him and the control room. It teaches you exactly where to cut. The broadcast ended. Ethan left the studio through a storm of reporters. Questions struck him from every direction. Was Vanessa cheating? Who was the man? Would he forgive her? Was the relationship over? Ethan answered none of them. He entered his car. Rain slid across the windows. His phone vibrated. Vanessa had sent dozens of messages. "Please call me. You're overreacting. Damien made me do it. I still love you. You can't freeze my accounts. Those accounts are mine too. Answer me." Then the final message arrived. "You will regret humiliating us." Ethan read it. A quiet laugh escaped his throat. She still believed tonight was her humiliation. She had no idea what was coming. His attorney called. "The evidence is enough," she said. "Fraud, conspiracy, attempted theft, unlawful access, defamation planning. Damien's father may try to protect him. He will. Then we should move carefully." "We will. What do you want me to do first?" Ethan looked back at the glowing tower of the network. Inside, executives were already discussing whether his scandal had damaged the company. Some would abandon him by morning. Some had secretly worked with Damien. Some had smiled in his face while waiting to inherit the pieces of his career. Ethan knew their names. The hidden archive knew more. "Do nothing tonight," he said. His attorney fell silent. "Nothing? Let them celebrate." "Ethan, they may destroy evidence. They can't destroy what I already own." His reflection appeared in the dark window. The broken man from the studio was gone. In his place sat someone Vanessa had never met, someone patient, someone practical, someone who no longer needed love badly enough to forgive poison. "Tomorrow," Ethan said, "I want them to believe I'm begging. And after that," he watched lightning split the sky. "After that, we let them take everything they think they stole." His attorney understood. A slow breath crossed the line. "You're setting a trap." Ethan closed his eyes. He saw Vanessa crawling back into his home. He saw Damien claiming the show. He saw the chairman signing contracts built on fraudulent evidence. He saw every enemy stepping willingly onto the same rotten bridge. Then he saw himself removing the final support. "No," Ethan whispered. "They built the trap themselves." His smile returned. "I'm only closing the door." By sunrise, the city had already chosen its favorite version of Ethan Cole's humiliation. Some called him pathetic. Some called him dangerous. Some called Vanessa brave for escaping a controlling man. Damien's people moved quickly. Too quickly. Before Ethan had even returned home, anonymous accounts began posting carefully edited clips from old broadcasts. His pauses became threats. His frustration became obsession. His silence became guilt. Vanessa released a statement before breakfast. She claimed she had spent years trapped in a relationship built on fear. She said Ethan monitored her phone, controlled her money, isolated her from friends, punished her whenever she disagreed with him. Every sentence was polished. Every phrase sounded painfully rehearsed. She ended by asking the public to respect her privacy while she healed. Ethan read the statement from the back seat of his car. His driver glanced at him through the mirror. "Sir?" Ethan lowered the phone. "What, are you all right?" Ethan looked out at the wet streets. Crowds moved beneath gray morning light. People hurried to work, carrying coffee and umbrellas, unaware that somewhere above them, a woman was turning lies into a weapon. "I'm awake," Ethan said. That was enough. His car stopped outside a private hotel. His apartment was no longer safe, not because Vanessa could enter. He had already changed the locks, but because Damien would expect him to return there. Damien would expect rage. Broken furniture, drunken calls, desperate pleading. anything that could be recorded, anything that could be twisted. Ethan gave him none of it. He entered a rented suite under a false corporate account. Marcus arrived soon after. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. He dropped a folder on the table. The network called an emergency meeting. Ethan poured coffee. When? Tonight. Good. Marcus stared at him. Good? They are in a hurry. Of course they are. Sponsors are panicking. The chairman wants your show suspended. Damien is telling everyone he can take over immediately. Ethan lifted the cup. Then let him. Marcus looked as if he had been struck. Have you lost your mind? No. You built that show. I know. You carried the network through every failed season. You made them relevant. You made Damien's father rich. I know. And now you want to hand it to that parasite? Ethan took a slow drink. Marcus stepped closer. If you resign, the cup down. No. If I fight now, they become cautious. Marcus fell silent. Ethan opened the hidden archive on his laptop, filled with messages, contracts, audio files, security logs. Damien's people had touched nearly every department in the network. Accounting, human resources, production, advertising. They had been planting loyalists for months. Damien had not merely planned to steal Ethan's show. He had prepared to turn the entire company against him. If I resist, Ethan said, they will hide. Marcus stared at the evidence. And if you surrender, they step into the light. A new message appeared. It came from Vanessa. We need to meet. Ethan typed one word. Her reply arrived instantly. Tonight my lawyer will send the location. He smiled. She believed fear had softened him. She believed the public statement had placed a knife against his throat. She did not understand that Ethan had stopped bleeding. His attorney, Evelyn Shaw, arrived with 2 phones and a sealed envelope. She was small, elegant, and merciless. Her expression never changed. I reviewed everything, she said. They are worse than we thought. Marcus leaned against the wall. How much worse? Evelyn placed one phone on the table and played an audio file. Damien's voice filled the room. We don't need him dead. Dead men become legends. We need him ashamed. Vanessa laughed softly. He already thinks everyone leaves him. Then make him believe it was his fault. Another voice joined them, a network executive. He will fight, Damien answered with a lazy chuckle. Not after the sponsors disappear. Not after Vanessa cries on camera. Not after every woman on the internet calls him a monster. Vanessa spoke again, and when he breaks, we buy the rights from him for nothing. The recording ended. Marcus swore under his breath. Evelyn opened the envelope. Inside were forged medical reports, forged therapy notes, forged photographs, all prepared to support Vanessa's story. She has not released these yet, Evelyn said. They are holding them as leverage. Ethan touched one photograph. It showed a dark bruise on Vanessa's arm. The image had been altered. The original came from a vacation years earlier, when she had fallen against a dock. Ethan remembered cleaning the wound himself. He remembered how she laughed while he bandaged it. Now that memory had become evidence against him. Marcus's face twisted with disgust. How do people become this rotten? Ethan looked at the photograph. They practice. Evelyn slid a contract toward him. This is what they will offer tonight. It transferred Ethan's program rights, advertising shares, and public archive to the network. In exchange, the company would avoid terminating him for misconduct. Marcus read the first page and slammed it down. This is robbery, it is bait, Ethan said. Evelyn studied him. You intend to sign. I intend to appear willing. Appearing willing can still become legally dangerous. That is why you are here. A faint smile touched her lips. Not warmth, approval. Ethan continued. I want a version that gives them exactly what they think they want. Marcus shook his head. You want to hand Damien the show. I want him responsible for it. The room went quiet. Ethan turned the laptop around. A financial report appeared. For years, his program had looked like the network's greatest asset. It was not. The numbers had been supported by several private sponsorship contracts negotiated directly through Ethan's holding company. Without him, those deals vanished. The production technology belonged to a separate vendor Ethan secretly controlled. The international distribution license would expire the moment he left. The celebrity guests came because they trusted him, not the network. The show was a golden palace built over an empty pit. Damien saw only the gold. He did not see the missing floor. Marcus slowly understood. You are giving him the name on the name. The sponsors? Gone the distribution? Gone the guests? Gone the streaming archive? Ethan's smile sharpened. Complicated. Evelyn folded her hands. How complicated? The network believes it owns the archive. It does not. It owns broadcast copies. The original masters belong to a company they forgot existed. Marcus stared. What company? Mine. For the first time since entering, Marcus laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of a man watching a blade slide from a sleeve. Ethan continued. Damien will take the show publicly. The chairman will announce him as the savior. Sponsors will pretend to support the transition because they fear scandal. And then? Marcus asked. Then every hidden weakness becomes his responsibility. Evelyn looked down at the forged documents. Vanessa will still attack you, I need her to. Why? Because she has not used her strongest lies yet. Evelyn's gaze hardened. You want her to commit fully. I want everything released. That will damage you. For a little while. Marcus frowned. A little while can destroy a career. Ethan looked at him. A career is only a cage when you are afraid to leave it. That afternoon, Ethan went to the network headquarters. Reporters crowded the entrance. Cameras flashed. Voices shouted his name. He lowered his head. Not too much. Enough to appear defeated. He wore a plain dark coat instead of his usual tailored suit. He had not shaved. His eyes looked exhausted. Every detail was intentional. The public wanted to see a broken man. He gave them one. Inside, employees watched him walk through the lobby. Some looked sympathetic. Some looked uncomfortable. Others smirked openly. A junior producer whispered to another as Ethan passed. So much for the perfect boyfriend. The other laughed. Ethan heard them. He remembered their names. He entered the top floor conference room. The chairman sat at the far end of the table. Richard Cross, Damien's father, a broad man with silver hair and the cold confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime buying silence. Damien sat beside him. Vanessa sat on the opposite side. Her lawyer rested a hand near a stack of documents. Several executives filled the remaining seats. Ethan's chair had been placed alone at the near end, a throne for the accused. He sat. Vanessa avoided his eyes at first. Then she looked at him. Her face carried carefully measured pain. Ethan. He said nothing. Richard cleared his throat. This situation has become catastrophic. Ethan lowered his gaze. I understand. Damien leaned back. The movement was casual, triumphant. Richard continued. Your personal conduct has placed the entire company at risk. My conduct? Vanessa flinched theatrically. Her lawyer immediately spoke. Let us avoid aggressive language. Ethan turned toward her. I asked a question. Damien smiled. Ethan looked at him. Do what? Pretend innocence. The executives shifted in their seats. Some looked at Damien with admiration. He was already performing as the new ruler. Vanessa pressed a tissue to her eyes. I never wanted this to become public. Ethan stared at the tissue. Dry, not a single tear had touched it. I called you, he said. Her lips trembled. Yeah, a man answered. She looked down. That does not excuse years of control. Richard raised one hand. This meeting is not about the affair. Damien's jaw tightened at the word. Ethan noticed. Vanessa had told Damien he was more than an affair. Yet Richard reduced him to one without hesitation. A tiny crack. Useful. This meeting, Richard continued, is about protecting the network. He pushed the contract across the table. Ethan did not touch it. Richard's voice became softer, more poisonous. If you sign, we will describe your departure as voluntary. And if I refuse? Vanessa's lawyer opened the folder of forged evidence. We release everything. Photographs slid onto the table. The false bruises, the false medical notes, the false messages. Vanessa finally looked directly at Ethan. For one instant, the sorrow vanished. Beneath it lay contempt. She believed she held his throat. Ethan let silence stretch. Then he inhaled shakily. A perfect performance. His shoulders lowered. His hands tightened. The executives watched with barely hidden satisfaction. They wanted him frightened. He gave them fear. Damien leaned forward. You should be grateful. Ethan's voice came out low. For what? For the chance to leave quietly. You take my show. You lost the right to call it yours. A few executives nodded. Ethan looked around the room. Men and women who had toasted his success, who had begged him to renew contracts, who had sent gifts on his birthday. Now they watched him like vultures surrounding an injured animal. The hatred inside him remained still. That stillness protected him. He reached for the contract. Vanessa's breathing relaxed. Damien smiled wider. Richard looked almost bored. Ethan turned the first page, then the next. He paused at the signature line. I need one condition. Damien scoffed. You are not in a position to demand anything. Richard raised a hand. What condition? Ethan looked at Vanessa. No criminal accusation. Her lawyer narrowed her eyes. Ethan continued. She can call me cruel, controlling, obsessive, whatever she wants. But no police report. Vanessa exchanged a glance with Damien. They believed they understood. A criminal case would bring discovery, questions, evidence requests, examinations of devices. They had never intended to involve the police. The threat worked better in public than in court. Richard leaned back. That can be arranged. Sitting beside Ethan, adjusted the contract. The clause appeared simple. Mutual non-criminal resolution. Private arbitration. No party would initiate law enforcement action based on relationship allegations disclosed before signing. Vanessa's lawyer reviewed it. Damien grew impatient. This is wasting time. Vanessa signed first. Her hand did not tremble. Damien signed as network representative. Richard added his approval. Ethan watched each stroke. each signature, each person stepping willingly into the pit. Then he signed. The room stood. The victor. He walked around the table and stopped beside Ethan. Security will collect your access card. Ethan removed it, placed it on the contract. Damien picked it up between two fingers. As of now, the show belongs to me. Ethan looked up at him. Damien expected tears. A final protest. Instead, Ethan smiled faintly. I hope you enjoy it. Something in his tone disturbed Vanessa. Her eyes narrowed. But the moment passed. Richard began discussing the public announcement. Damien talked about rebranding. Vanessa whispered with her lawyer. They had already moved beyond Ethan. He was finished in their minds. A corpse still sitting in the room. Ethan stood. Vanessa called after him. We should talk privately. He paused. She approached. The executives pretended not to listen. Vanessa lowered her voice. This can still end peacefully. Ethan looked at the woman he had once planned to marry. She wore the necklace he had given her. She carried the handbag he had bought. Her lawyer had been paid using money stolen from one of his accounts, yet she stood before him as if she had escaped a prison. Peacefully? He asked. If you do not challenge the story, you mean your story. Her expression cooled. You pushed me into this. Not guilt, not shame. Ethan nodded slowly. I understand. Vanessa searched his face. She wanted to see collapse. She needed it. You should leave the city for a while, she said. People are angry. Are you worried about me? I am trying to protect everyone. He almost admired the shamelessness. Damien too? Her eyes flashed. He understands me. No, he understands what you cost. Her face hardened. Do not become bitter. Ethan leaned closer. His voice remained soft. You mistook silence for weakness. Vanessa's skin tightened around her eyes. For the first time, uncertainty touched her. Ethan stepped away. Then he added, enjoy the show. He left the building. Behind him, Damien was announced as interim host before the elevator reached the ground floor. The news spread instantly. The public celebrated. Vanessa's followers multiplied. Damien posted a photograph from Ethan's former studio with the caption that a new era had begun. Ethan watched it from his hotel room. Marcus stood beside the window. They took the bait. Not all of it. What remains? Ethan opened the archive. A new folder had appeared. Damien had logged into the executive system using Ethan's surrendered credentials. He had accessed confidential sponsor files, modified advertising records, approved a payment to Vanessa, and attempted to delete internal security logs. Every action was copied, every mistake preserved. Ethan leaned back. He thinks the feast has started, Marcus smiled. And the poison? Ethan selected a command. Across the city, the network's private sponsor agreements began expiring. International broadcasters received automatic notices. Guest representatives canceled upcoming appearances. The production vendor suspended equipment support. Digital rights reverted to Ethan's company. One by one, invisible pillars disappeared. No alarms sounded. No windows shattered. The palace still looked magnificent. Only Ethan knew it was already falling. He poured a glass of water. No wine. He wanted his mind clear. On the television, Damien sat behind Ethan's old desk. The red light turned on. Live Damien smiled into the camera. Vanessa stood beside him. Together they spoke about courage, healing truth, a fresh beginning. The viewer count surged. Then the first sponsor withdrew. Damien did not notice. The second withdrew moments later. Then the third. Marcus looked at the financial dashboard. Numbers collapsed in silence. How long before they realize? Ethan watched Vanessa place her hand over Damien's. Soon. And what do we do until then? Ethan's expression became cold. We grow. He opened a new broadcasting platform. The domain had been registered years ago. The servers were ready. The contracts were waiting. Independent creators. Investigative reporters. Artists blacklisted by Richard Cross. Former employees crushed by the network. People who had been silenced. People who remembered. Ethan sent one message. The invitation was brief. No promises, no speeches. Only a location and a time. Replies arrived almost immediately. Yes. Yes, yes. Marcus stared at the screen. You built this already? I prepared the foundation. When? Every time the network reminded me it could replace me. The ruined man from the morning disappeared completely. Ethan's eyes reflected the growing list of names. Vanessa and Damien believed they had stolen his kingdom. They had taken a stage, a logo. Ethan had taken the people, the technology, the contracts, and the truth. He stood. Tomorrow we begin broadcasting. Marcus looked at him. Under what name? Ethan glanced at the live screen where Damien laughed beneath stolen lights. A slow smile crossed his face. Open signal. Marcus repeated it quietly. Ethan closed the laptop. Outside, thunder rolled above the city. Inside the network, Damien raised a glass to victory. Vanessa smiled beside him. Neither noticed the first crack beneath their feet. Neither heard the hidden supports breaking. Neither understood that Ethan had handed them a golden cup filled to the edge with poison. and they had already begun to drink. Open signal began in a warehouse no one wanted. The roof leaked. The concrete floor was scarred. The lights buzzed with the weak persistence of dying insects. There were no marble hallways, no private elevators, no executives hiding behind tinted glass, only cables, folding tables, second-hand monitors, and people who had already lost everything worth fearing. Ethan stood in the center of the empty studio while workers dragged equipment into place. Marcus held a clipboard and stared at the mess. This looks terrible. It looks honest. It looks condemned. Then no one will expect an empire. Marcus glanced at him. You really enjoy saying things like that now. Ethan picked up a loose cable and handed it to a technician. I always thought that before noon the first recruits arrived. Lena Ward came first. She had once been the network's most respected investigative producer. Richard Cross fired her after she uncovered evidence that one of his advertisers had bribed public officials. The network buried the story. Then it buried her. Lena entered wearing an old leather jacket and carrying 3 hard drives under one arm. She looked around the warehouse. This is either the beginning of something important or an extremely elaborate kidnapping. Ethan extended his hand. You came anyway. I hate Richard more than I fear you. That is enough. She shook his hand. Next came Julian Park, a documentary editor whose career had been destroyed after Damien blamed him for a failed series Damien himself had sabotaged. Then came Rosa Bell, a former entertainment reporter who had refused to fabricate a scandal about an actress. Then Malik Stone, a technical engineer who had designed half the network's current streaming system before being dismissed without severance. Then came writers, editors, researchers, camera operators, people who had been forced to sign silence agreements, people whose names had vanished from credits, people whose work had made other men rich. By evening, the warehouse no longer felt abandoned. It breathed. Monitors flickered to life. Cameras rotated. Audio boards lit up. A temporary stage rose beneath steel beams. Open Signal had no polished logo, no expensive theme music, no carefully manufactured slogan. Its first broadcast began with Ethan sitting at a plain black desk. Behind him stood a wall of exposed brick. No applause, no audience, no ring beside his hand. He looked directly into the camera. The viewer count began low, then doubled again. People had come expecting tears, an apology. Perhaps revenge offered none. My name is Ethan Cole, he said. The chat flooded. He continued without pausing. Some of you watched me lose a relationship, a program, and a reputation in a single night. The numbers surged higher. Many of you decided what happened before hearing evidence. A few comments turned hostile. He ignored them. I will not ask for sympathy. His voice remained steady. I will not defend myself with private pain. Across the city, Damien watched from Ethan's former studio. Vanessa sat beside him. Richard stood behind them. They expected Ethan to beg. Instead, Ethan placed a small black drive on the desk. This platform exists for stories powerful institutions would rather bury. Lena entered the frame. She sat beside him. The chat changed. People recognized her. Rumors spread. She had disappeared years ago. Some believed she had retired. Others believed she had been paid to remain silent. Lena folded her hands. Our first investigation concerns a charity network accused of stealing medicine from public clinics. Damien frowned. Vanessa leaned closer to the screen. Richard's expression hardened. The charity belonged to one of his largest sponsors. Ethan said nothing more about himself. He surrendered the broadcast to Lena. Documents appeared. Invoices. Recorded conversations. Shipping. Testimony from exhausted doctors. The investigation was precise, brutal, impossible to dismiss. Within an hour, public officials announced an inquiry. By midnight, the sponsor's chief executive had resigned. By morning, every major news outlet was citing Open Signal. Damien threw a glass against the wall. The new host's chair did not protect him from failure. His first week had been a parade of disasters. The celebrity guest scheduled for his premiere canceled. The replacement canceled hours later. A musical performer refused to appear after discovering Damien had mocked her privately. The equipment malfunctioned during a live interview. The international stream failed. Advertisements disappeared from commercial breaks. The studio remained beautiful. The audience did not. Damien's viewer count collapsed each night. Open Signals climbed. He summoned the network's technical director. Fix it. The director stood before him with sweat on his forehead. We no longer control the original distribution system. Damien slammed his hand on the desk. Then rebuild it. That could take months. You have days. The vendor suspended support. Pay them. They refused. Why? The director looked at Richard. The vendor is owned through several holding companies. Richard's face darkened. Owned by whom? The answer came quietly. Ethan Cole. Damien stared. For several seconds, he seemed unable to breathe. Then he swept everything off the desk. He was a host. The director said nothing. Damien stepped closer. He talked into a microphone. Still nothing. He did not build this company. Richard spoke from the corner. No. His voice was colder than Damien's rage. He built the parts we forgot to own. Damien turned toward his father. You knew? I knew he was useful. Useful? Richard looked at the dark studio monitors. I underestimated how careful he was. Vanessa stood near the doorway. Her face was pale. This was not how victory was supposed to feel. She had imagined Ethan disappearing, a ruined man hiding from the world. She had imagined herself becoming a symbol of survival. Sponsors would admire her courage. Interviewers would praise her strength. Damien would place her beside him as the new queen of the network. Instead, the public had begun asking questions. Why had she never filed a police report? Why did her medical documents contain inconsistent dates? Why had her photographs appeared online years earlier with different explanations? Why had she transferred money from Ethan's accounts shortly before accusing him? Her followers still defended her. But doubt had entered. Doubt spread slower than scandal. It also lived longer. Damien turned on her. You said he would break. Vanessa stiffened. He should have. He is building a rival company. He was planning it before. You told me he had nothing hidden. He lied to me. Damien laughed without humor. So the man you called predictable lied to you for years? Richard watched them both. Disgust sharpened his gaze. Vanessa stepped toward Damien. We still control the story. Do we? Yes. Release the therapy notes. Richard spoke immediately. No, Vanessa looked at him. They will prove. They will invite examination. They were prepared carefully. Richard's eyes became dangerous. Prepared is not the same as real. Silence filled the room. Damien looked between them. We already released part of them. Richard's head turned slowly. What? Vanessa swallowed. Only a page. When? This morning. Richard closed his eyes. Not in fear, in fury. You acted without legal review. Damien crossed his arms. We needed pressure. You needed discipline. I needed results. Richard stepped toward his son. You have confused inheritance with competence your entire life. Damien's face reddened. Vanessa moved between them. This is not helping. Richard looked at her as though noticing an unpleasant smell. You are the reason we are exposed. Her lips parted. You supported the plan. I supported removing Ethan. You promised protection. I promised nothing to a woman who could not keep one man deceived for another month. Damien grabbed Richard's shoulder. Do not speak to her like that. Richard looked down at his son's hand. Damien released him. A crack widened between father and son. Another between Damien and Vanessa. Ethan did not need to strike. The poison was working. At open signal, success arrived faster than anyone expected. Ethan refused to celebrate. He worked. He studied every hour of audience behavior, every drop in attention, every surge in trust. He rejected cheap gossip. He rejected fabricated outrage. He rejected sponsors who demanded control. Instead, he built a membership system. Viewers paid small monthly amounts in exchange for complete access to investigations, documentaries, interviews, and public evidence archives. The money grew steadily, then rapidly. Independent journalists brought their audiences. Artists brought theirs. Former network employees brought secrets. Every new story created another wave. Every wave brought new members. The warehouse expanded. Then a second building opened. Then a private editing center. Then a secure server facility. Ethan purchased equipment at auction from failed studios. Malik rebuilt it. What looked obsolete became powerful. What looked cheap became efficient. Every dollar entered the company with a purpose. Every employee received profit shares. Every investigator received legal protection. Every source received encrypted access. Loyalty did not come from speeches. It came from structure. Ethan understood that gratitude faded. Ownership did not. Marcus walked through the growing headquarters and shook his head. This was empty weeks ago. It is still too small. We have more viewers than the network's evening lineup. Viewers leave. Our members are not leaving. They might, Marcus sighed. Does anything satisfy you? Ethan looked through a glass wall at a team reviewing public corruption records. Control satisfies me. That sounds healthy. It is useful. Lena joined them. She placed a folder on the table. We received another package. From where? The network. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Someone inside is leaking? Several people. Ethan opened the folder. It contained executive emails, financial reports, private recordings. Damien had begun ordering employees to manipulate ratings. Richard had begun moving money between subsidiaries. Vanessa had demanded payment for interviews she publicly described as acts of healing. The network was rotting from the inside. Can we publish? Lena asked. Not yet. Marcus frowned. Why wait? Because this proves greed. Ethan closed the folder. I want the structure. Lena understood. You want the whole chain. Every payment. Every order. Every person. That could take time. We have time. Across the city, they had none. Damien's program lost another sponsor. Then another. The remaining advertisers demanded lower prices. The board demanded an explanation. Richard demanded Damien resign quietly. Damien refused. You gave me the show. I gave you a chance. You want Ethan back. I want revenue. I can recover it. Richard stared at him. How? Damien smiled. It was the smile of a desperate man pretending to hold a weapon. Open Signal is built on stolen network material. Richard's eyes narrowed. Is it? We accuse Ethan of theft, trade secrets, contract violations. We bury him in lawsuits, and evidence we create enough uncertainty. Richard looked at his son for a long moment. Then he turned toward the window. Do it. Damien contacted every outlet willing to print an allegation. By evening, headlines appeared. Ethan Cole accused of stealing network technology. Open Signal Bullcornred espionage. Former host faces massive legal claim. The network filed suit. Commentators returned to the scandal. Old mockery resurfaced. Vanessa posted a statement claiming Ethan had always been obsessed with control and ownership. She said Open Signal proved he had manipulated everyone around him. Ethan read the lawsuit in his office. Marcus paced. They are asking for everything. I know. They want the platform shut down. I know. They are calling our servers stolen. I know. Marcus stopped. Could you say something else? Ethan turned to Evelyn. She placed a second folder on the desk. Inside were patent records, purchase agreements, source code ownership documents, signed acknowledgments from Richard Cross. Every piece of technology Damien called stolen had been licensed from Ethan's companies. The network had used it for years without realizing how little it owned. Evelyn's expression carried quiet satisfaction. Their lawsuit gives us discovery rights. Marcus slowly smiled. We can demand their internal records. Yes, Evelyn said. The records they have been hiding. Yes. The financial transfers. Yes, the forged evidence. If connected to their claim, yes. Marcus laughed. They sued the one person they should have avoided. Ethan looked at the complaint. Damien's signature appeared near the end. Another door opened willingly. Another step into darkness. Respond aggressively, Ethan said. Evelyn nodded. How aggressive? Countersue for unauthorized use, unpaid licensing, fraud, defamation, and destruction of evidence. Marcus leaned against the desk. That could bankrupt them. Not yet. Evelyn understood the distinction. You want pressure, not collapse. I want Damien to seek emergency funding. Why? Because desperation reveals ownership. Ethan opened a market report. Several investment groups had already approached the network. One stood out. Blackridge Capital, a ruthless private fund known for buying wounded companies, draining their assets, and discarding the remains. Marcus read the name. They will destroy the network. Yes. Then why would Damien choose them? Because they will flatter him. A few days later, Blackridge invited Damien to a private dinner. They praised his courage. They praised his vision. They called him the future of media. They offered immediate cash. All they wanted was a controlling interest in the network's digital division. Damien signed before Richard could stop him. The money arrived. For one night, the network celebrated. Bills were paid. Advertisements returned. Employees were told the crisis had passed. Vanessa wore a silver dress and stood beside Damien at a private party. Photographers captured them laughing. She lifted champagne to survival. Damien touched his glass to hers, to victory. They did not know Blackridge had purchased its investment funds from a newly created holding company. They did not know that holding company belonged to another company. They did not know that company belonged to Ethan. From his office at Open Signal, Ethan watched the signed agreement enter his secure archive. Marcus stared at the ownership chart. You finance the people buying them. I finance the debt. So Blackridge controls the digital division, for now, and you control Blackridge's loan. Yes, Marcus sat slowly. That means if they fail to meet the terms, I take the collateral, the network's digital assets, the studio, the archive copies, the subscriber data, the advertising technology. Marcus looked through the window at the expanding Open Signal floor. Employees moved beneath bright lights. Screens displayed rising membership, investigations, interviews, documentaries, a living machine growing stronger by the hour. Ethan had not merely rebuilt what was stolen. He had built something larger. Then he had used its profits to purchase the rope around his enemies' necks. When do you pull it? Marcus asked. Ethan watched the photograph of Vanessa and Damien celebrating. Their smiles were wide, their glasses raised, their eyes drunk on borrowed power. Not yet. What are we waiting for? Ethan closed the image. For them to believe the throne is real. Outside, the Open Signal sign illuminated the night. Inside the network, Damien sat in Ethan's former chair. Vanessa leaned against him. Richard stood alone in his office, reading the Blackridge contract again and again. Somewhere deep inside him, fear had begun to move. He finally understood that the network was no longer losing a war. It had already been sold, and the man they had thrown away was quietly buying every road they might use to escape. The storm broke on a Monday morning. Not with thunder, not with fire, with a frozen screen. At exactly the moment Damien began his most important live broadcast, every monitor inside the network headquarters turned black. The control room lost audio. The studio lights flickered. The teleprompter died. Damien sat behind the desk, staring into a camera that no longer transmitted anything. "Fix it," he hissed. No one answered. The technicians were shouting over one another. The emergency system refused their passwords. The backup servers rejected every command. The network logo vanished from millions of screens. In its place appeared a single message: "Surface suspended pending contractual deft review." Damien stood so quickly that his chair crashed backward. "What does that mean?" The technical director looked sick. "It means Blackridge activated the collateral clause." Richard Cross entered the studio. His face had lost all color. "They cannot." "They already did," the director said. Damien turned toward his father. "You said the funding was secure." Richard ignored him. He grabbed the director by the arm. "Restore the signal. We no longer own the distribution control." Richard's grip tightened. "Who does?" No one wanted to answer. The director finally whispered the name: Blackridge. Damien laughed once, a dry, broken sound. "Then call them." "We did, and they transferred enforcement authority." "To whom?" The studio doors opened. Several men in dark suits entered with legal documents. Behind them came Evelyn Shaw. She walked calmly through the chaos. Her heels clicked against the floor with the rhythm of a funeral bell. Richard stared at her. "You." Evelyn stopped in front of him. "The network failed to meet several debt conditions. That is a lie. Missed licensing payments, falsified advertising records, undisclosed litigation exposure, unauthorized destruction of data." Damien stepped forward. "You cannot shut down a national network over paperwork." Evelyn looked at him. "You signed the paperwork." He froze. She handed him a copy of the Blackridge agreement. His own signature waited at the bottom. The ink looked harmless. The trap did not. Richard snatched the pages. His eyes moved across the clauses. Then faster, then slower. Every line stripped something from him. Digital distribution, archive access, advertising systems, production facilities, subscriber databases, emergency enforcement rights. He reached the final page and stopped breathing. The secured lender was not Blackridge. Blackridge had only acted as administrator. The true lender was a holding company. That company belonged to another. And that company belonged to Ethan Cole. Richard raised his head. No, Evelyn gave him no mercy. Yes. Damien took the document from his father. His hands shook. At first, he read without understanding. Then the meaning reached him. The man he had mocked as a disposable host now held the legal key to every locked door around him. The man Vanessa had called weak now controlled the debt choking the network. Damien looked toward the dark camera. For the first time, he appeared small behind Ethan's old desk. "No," he repeated. Across the city, open signal went live. Ethan sat beneath clean white lights. Behind him, several screens displayed legal filings, ownership records, and archived messages. The viewer count rose so quickly that the system added new capacity automatically. People expected another investigation. They received an execution. Lena sat beside Ethan. Her voice was steady. For months, the cross-network accused OpenSignal of theft, misconduct, and corporate sabotage. Documents appeared behind her. "Today, we are releasing the records obtained through lawful discovery in the lawsuit they initiated." The first file opened. Damien's messages ordering employees to manipulate ratings. The second, payments to anonymous accounts spreading false accusations. The third, instructions to edit private recordings. The fourth, a transfer from Ethan's account to a shell company linked to Vanessa. The fifth, a recording of Damien discussing how to break Ethan psychologically. The sixth, Vanessa laughing. Her voice filled the broadcast. "He will believe anything if I cry." The chat stopped for one stunned moment, then exploded. At the network, Vanessa heard the recording from a technician's phone. Her face emptied. "Turn that off." No one moved. Another recording played. Damien spoke. "Once he signs over the show, we make him look unstable," Vanessa answered. "And if he fights, we release the bruises. Even though they are fake?" Damien laughed. "People believe photographs." Vanessa lunged for the phone. The technician stepped back. Every employee in the studio stared at her. Not with pity, not with admiration, with disgust. Her manufactured tears appeared instantly. That was taken out of context. No one answered. She turned toward Damien. "Do something." Damien was still reading the contract. The world around him no longer seemed real. The studio, the brand, the power. All of it had belonged to him only because Ethan had allowed the illusion to continue. He looked at his father. "You knew he owned the lender?" Richard's voice came through clenched teeth. "No. You told me to sign. I told you not to act without review. You approved it. I approved emergency funding because you drove the company into collapse." Damien's eyes widened. "I drove it? You lost the sponsors. You lost Ethan." Richard struck him. The sound cracked through the studio. Damien stumbled into the desk. Vanessa gasped. Employees backed away. Father and son stared at each other. Years of resentment surfaced in a single breath. Damien touched his bleeding lip. You always thought he was better than me. Richard said nothing. That silence answered everything. Damien attacked him. They crashed into the desk. Paper scattered. The old host chair tipped over. Security rushed forward. Vanessa screamed at them to stop. No one listened. On open signal, the next file appeared. Forged therapy notes, altered photographs, fabricated medical records. Evelyn explained every inconsistency, dates that did not match. Doctors who had never seen Vanessa. Images changed after their original upload. Metadata proving the files had been edited on Damien's computer. The story Vanessa had built collapsed piece by piece. Her followers began deleting old posts. Brands removed her photographs. Interview clips vanished. Commentators who had praised her courage suddenly claimed they had always wanted more evidence. The same crowd that had mocked Ethan now turned toward her. Cruel, hungry, unforgiving. Ethan watched the reaction without pleasure on his face. Lena glanced at him. You expected this. Yes. The public is tearing them apart. The public tears apart whoever is nearest. You sound disappointed. I am unsurprised. The broadcast continued. A final recording played. Richard Cross spoke to a group of executives. If the accusation fails, we blame Vanessa. If Damien fails, we remove him. If the network fails, we transfer the losses to the employees. The workers inside headquarters heard every word. Silence spread through the building. Then anger. Employees who had defended Richard gathered in the lobby. Technicians abandoned their stations. Producers opened confidential folders and sent copies to open signal. Assistants carried boxes of evidence out through service doors. Former loyalists turned on managers. Managers turned on executives. Executives called lawyers. The network did not collapse from outside pressure. It devoured itself. Richard finally escaped Damien's grip. His collar was torn. His face was bruised. He stood amid the ruined studio and realized no one was protecting him. Security guards watched without moving. Remove my son, he ordered. No one obeyed. Richard shouted. I said remove him. A guard removed his badge instead. I have not been paid in weeks. Another dropped his radio. So have I. They walked away. Richard looked around the studio. Every person avoided his eyes. The throne had vanished. Only the old man remained. Damien began laughing. Blood touched his teeth. Look at you. Richard turned toward him. You idiot. No, look at yourself. Damien pointed at the dead camera. You built this place to make people afraid of you. Richard's jaw tightened. And now? Damien spread his arms. No one cares. Vanessa slipped toward the exit. Ethan's voice came from every employee's phone. The Cross network claimed Open Signal was built from stolen technology. Behind him, ownership records appeared. Those claims were false. Then patent records. Licensing agreements. Signed approvals. Every document proved Ethan owned the systems the network had used for years. The public watched in disbelief. He had not stolen from the network. The network had depended on him. Damien saw the records. His knees weakened. He remembered every insult. Every joke. Every time he called Ethan nothing more than a voice. Every time he said the studio created the man. Now the truth stood before him. The studio had been a shell. Ethan had been the machine. Open Signal's viewership reached levels the network had never achieved. Independent stations began rebroadcasting the feed. International outlets joined. Public officials announced fraud investigations. Advertisers demanded repayment. Financial authorities froze several Cross accounts. Police entered the building with warrants. Vanessa reached the lobby before officers stopped her. She smiled nervously. There has been a misunderstanding. One officer asked for her phone. She held it tighter. My lawyer will explain. Your lawyer has withdrawn representation. The word struck her harder than any accusation. What? She notified authorities this morning. Vanessa looked toward the elevators. Damien was not coming. Richard was not coming. No one was coming. The crowd outside saw her through the glass. Reporters surged toward the entrance. Cameras lifted. Questions screamed from every direction. Did she forge the evidence? Did she steal Ethan's money? Did she conspire with Damien? Was her abuse story false? Vanessa covered her face. The same cameras she once craved now felt like knives. She turned and ran deeper into the building. There was nowhere to hide. Damien was escorted from the studio. He struggled. He shouted that Ethan had framed him. He shouted that the evidence was stolen. He shouted that his father had planned everything. Richard heard him. Coward. Damien twisted toward him. You used me. You ruined everything. You gave me nothing except your name. And you destroyed even that. They were dragged towards separate elevators. Each blamed the other. Each begged officers to listen. Each promised evidence against the other. The loyal family image disintegrated before the doors closed. At Open Signal, Lena finished presenting the financial documents. She turned toward Ethan. Do you have anything to say to the people who believe the accusations? Ethan looked into the camera. Millions waited for anger, triumph, perhaps forgiveness. He gave them none. Belief is cheap, he said. The chat slowed. Evidence is expensive. His voice remained quiet. They spent months manufacturing a story because they believed emotion would outrun truth. He folded his hands. They were correct. A shadow passed across Lena's face. Ethan continued. For a while. Behind him appeared a live image of the Cross headquarters. Police entered. Employees exited carrying boxes. The network sign went dark. The truth does not always arrive first. Ethan's eyes sharpened. But when prepared properly, it arrives with receipts. The broadcast ended. No applause followed. No music, only a black screen. Then the Open Signal logo appeared. Clean, simple, alive. Marcus entered the studio. You just shattered the most powerful network in the country? Ethan stood. No. They shattered themselves. You controlled the debt. I controlled the timing. Damien is under investigation. Richard's accounts are frozen. Vanessa is trapped inside the building. Ethan removed his microphone. Then the first stage is complete. Marcus stared at him. The first stage? Ethan walked toward the glass wall overlooking the production floor. Outside, employees celebrated. Some hugged. Some cried. The platform's membership count climbed beyond every projection. Ethan watched without smiling. Power had returned. Not the borrowed power of a studio chair. Real power. Ownership. Infrastructure. Evidence. Loyalty purchased through fairness and protected by structure. A message arrived on his private phone, Vanessa. She had found a hidden device. Ethan, please. Another message. Damien lied to me. Then another, I can prove Richard planned everything. Then another, I never wanted to hurt you. Ethan read them all. The woman who had mocked his need for love was now begging for one reply. He typed nothing. A call followed. He'd again. Declined. Again declined. Marcus looked at the screen. She is desperate. She is late. What happens now? Ethan placed the phone face down. Below them, Open Signal continued broadcasting reports about the raids. The Cross Empire burned in silence. Vanessa crouched inside a locked restroom, listening to officers search the halls. Damien sat in an interview room, promising to betray his father. Richard demanded a judge, a senator, anyone who still answered his calls. No one did. Ethan looked across the city at the tower where his enemies had once celebrated. Its highest floors were dark. Its windows reflected storm clouds. He remembered the live call, the strange voice, the laughter, the sentence that had ended his old life. You were not supposed to call tonight. A cold smile touched his lips. They had been right. He had called at the wrong time. He had heard what he was never meant to hear. And because of that single mistake, every hidden knife had been revealed. Now the people who planned to bury him were choking inside the grave they had prepared. Marcus waited. Ethan finally spoke. Now they crawl. Vanessa arrived at Open Signal before dawn. Not through the front entrance. The crowd gathered there would have torn her apart with questions before she reached the doors. She came through the underground garage wearing a hood, dark glasses, and a borrowed coat. None of it helped. The security cameras recognized her. The guards recognized her. The receptionist recognized her. Every face she passed held the same expression. Contempt sharpened by certainty. Weeks ago, Vanessa had walked through the Cross Network headquarters like a queen. Assistants opened doors. Stylists carried her clothes. Producers waited for permission to speak. Now no one moved for her. She stood beneath the cold garage lights and wrapped both arms around herself. I need to see Ethan. The guard behind the desk did not look up. You do not have an appointment. He will see me. No, Vanessa swallowed. Tell him I have evidence. He has evidence. This is different. The guard finally looked at her. So was your story. Her face tightened. I am not here to argue with you. You are not here to go upstairs either. Vanessa reached into her bag. The guards tensed. She slowly removed a flash drive. This contains Richard's private accounts, offshore transfers, payments to officials. Damien kept copies. The guard said nothing. Vanessa placed the drive on the desk. Give this to Ethan. The receptionist behind the glass picked up a phone. Vanessa exhaled in relief, at last. A door opened across the garage. Marcus stepped out. He wore no jacket. His sleeves were rolled up. His expression was tired and cold. Vanessa pushed past the guard. Marcus. He raised one hand. She stopped. Where is Ethan? Working. I need to speak with him. He does not need to speak with you. Her voice cracked. This concerns his safety. Marcus looked at the flash drive. Everything concerns his safety after you tried to destroy him. I made mistakes. You forged abuse evidence. Damien arranged it. You signed it. Richard threatened us. You accepted his money. Vanessa's eyes filled, real tears this time. They came too late. I was scared. Marcus stared at her. Ethan was scared when millions heard another man answer your phone. She flinched. He was scared when you told the world he was violent. Her lips trembled. He was scared when the company he built threw him away. Marcus stepped closer, and while he was scared, you laughed. Vanessa wiped her face. I never laughed at his pain. Marcus's expression hardened. I heard the recordings. Silence. Vanessa looked toward the elevator. He loved me. Marcus said nothing. He still does. No, you cannot know that. I watched him stop. The words struck deeper than shouting. Vanessa lowered her gaze. For months, she had imagined Ethan as a permanent object, a door she could open whenever she wanted, a heart she could wound and still return to. She had mistaken his devotion for weakness, his patience for dependency, his silence for surrender. Now she stood in the empire he built without her. Every wall proved she had not been the source of his strength. She had only been a weight he finally dropped. Please, she whispered. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he pressed the elevator button. Vanessa looked up. Hope entered her face. Thank you. Do not thank me. The doors open. He agreed to give you 5 minutes. She entered. Marcus remained outside. The doors closed between them. The elevator rose. Vanessa watched the floor numbers climb in the mirrored wall. Her own reflection frightened her. Her makeup had faded. Her hair was unwashed. The woman staring back looked older than the one who had smiled beside Damien. For the first time, Vanessa understood what Ethan must have seen when he watched the recordings. Not beauty, not vulnerability. Rot. The elevator opened into Ethan's office. He stood beside the window. Morning light spread across the city behind him. The room was quiet, no guards. No lamras, just Ethan. He wore a black shirt with the sleeves folded neatly at his forearms. A glass of red wine rested on the desk. Vanessa noticed it immediately. He had once told her he never drank while working. She had mocked him for being rigid. Now the glass looked ceremonial. A private toast before a burial. Ethan, he did not turn. Vanessa stepped inside. The doors closed behind her. I brought something, I know. It proves Richard bribed officials and hid money. I already have those records. Her fingers tightened around the flash drive. This has Damien's private notes. I have those too. She stared at him. How? Ethan finally turned. His face held no anger that frightened her more. Anger would have meant heat. Heat could fade. This was ice. You never understood what I knew, he said. Vanessa took another step. I want to help. You want protection. I can testify you will. I mean for you. No. Her eyes filled again. Why are you doing this? Ethan almost smiled. Doing what? Treating me like a stranger. You chose worse. She pressed a hand to her chest. I was confused. You were organized. Damien manipulated me. You transferred the money. Richard pressured us. You signed the lies. I thought you would recover. The room went still. Ethan looked at her. Vanessa realized what she had admitted. She rushed forward. It is exactly what you meant. No, you believed I would survive. His voice remained calm, so destroying me felt affordable. She shook her head. I loved you. Ethan lifted the wine glass. He studied the dark liquid before taking a slow drink. Vanessa watched his mouth touch the rim. She remembered the nights they shared. The promises, the laughter, the ring. Her knees weakened. I did love you. Ethan placed the glass down. You loved access. That is cruel. You loved my name. Stop. You loved my money. Tears spilled down her face. Stop. You loved the way my loyalty made you feel powerful. She covered her ears. Please. He stepped around the desk. Vanessa lowered her hands. For one desperate moment, she believed he might embrace her. Instead, he stopped several feet away. Do you remember what you told Damien? Her breathing became shallow. Ethan repeated the words. He will believe anything if I cry. Vanessa closed her eyes. The sentence hung between them. Her own voice, her own contempt, her own blade returning to her throat. I was trying to impress him. You succeeded. I did not mean it. You said I was desperate to be loved. She shook harder. You said I would sign away my soul for a kiss. I was angry. You said you wanted me to propose publicly before you accused me. She collapsed to her knees. Ethan. He looked down at her. There it was, the scene she had imagined for him. The powerful one standing. The ruined one kneeling. Only the positions had changed. Vanessa reached toward him. He stepped back. Her hand closed around empty air. I will do anything. You already did. I will return the money. It is frozen. I will testify against Damien. He already testified against you. Her face went blank. What? Damien gave the investigators everything last night. Vanessa stopped breathing. Ethan continued. He said you created the abuse story. He is lying. He said you forged the photographs. He edited them. He said you planned the transfers. He approved them. He said you seduced him to gain access to the network. Vanessa stared at the floor. No. Ethan watched the truth sink in. Damien had abandoned her before she reached the garage. The man she chose over Ethan had traded her freedom for a smaller sentence. The alliance built on betrayal ended exactly as it began, with someone else's knife in her back. He promised me, she whispered. Ethan's expression did not change. So did you. Vanessa crawled forward. She grabbed the edge of his desk. Please protect me. You had me. I made a mistake. You made a plan. I can change. You can suffer. Her head lifted. For the first time, fear replaced grief. What are you going to do? She blinked. Ethan returned to the window. The law will do what it can, and you? I will watch. Her lips parted. He looked at her reflection in the glass. You taught me the value of silence. Security entered. Vanessa screamed. She clung to the desk. Ethan, please? The guards pulled her away. She kicked, sobbed. Called his name. She promised love, marriage, loyalty. Every word arrived after its value had died. The doors closed. Her voice vanished. Ethan lifted the glass again. The wine tasted bitter. He drank anyway. Damien came later. Not by choice. Investigators brought him through the main entrance. Reporters surrounded the vehicle. He hid his face. The man who once enjoyed cameras now recoiled from every flash. Inside an interview room, Damien waited beneath white lights. His expensive suit had been replaced by plain detention clothing. His lip was swollen. His eyes were red. Ethan entered alone. Damien laughed when he saw him. It sounded weak. So you came to enjoy this? Ethan sat across from him. Yes. Damien's smile disappeared. You think you won. I know what winning looks like. You lost Vanessa. Ethan leaned back. No, I removed her. Damien studied him. Hatred moved across his face. You always thought you were better than me. I rarely thought about you. The insult landed cleanly. Damien gripped the table. My father chose you. Your father chose profit. He respected you. He used me. You built everything he wanted, and you destroyed everything he gave you. Damien lunged against the restraints. The table shook. You planned this. You signed it. You trapped me. You were greedy. You bought Blackridge. You were desperate. You stole my company. You never owned it. Damien's breathing became ragged. Ethan watched him without blinking. The arrogance had gone. The polished air had vanished. Only a frightened man remained. A man who had spent his life believing inheritance was strength. You could stop this, Damien said. No. You control the debt. Yes. You could withdraw the charges. Some of them. Then do it. Ethan smiled. Damien stared at that smile. The same smile he had mistaken for weakness during the meeting. Now he understood. The smile had been the closed mouth of a beast waiting to bite. What do you want? Ethan folded his hands. To hear you ask properly. Damien's face twisted. You cannot be serious. Then we are finished. Wait. Ethan turned toward the door. Damien lowered his head. The word came out through clenched teeth. Please. Ethan waited. Damien's shoulders shook. Please help me. Ethan looked at him, louder. Damien raised his face. Tears stood in his eyes. Please help me. Why? Because I will lose everything. You already did. My life is over. You planned mine. I was jealous. You were cruel. I was stupid. You were confident. Damien swallowed. I am sorry. Ethan stepped closer. Damien looked up at him like a starving man watching food pass beyond reach. Ethan spoke quietly. Do you remember what you said on the phone? Damien's eyes shifted. Ethan repeated it. Someone she actually respects. Damien closed his eyes. The room became silent. That voice, Ethan said, saved my life. Damien opened his eyes. Confusion mixed with fear. If you had stayed quiet, I might have proposed. Ethan's voice became colder. I might have signed more accounts into her name. He leaned closer. I might have spent years feeding both of you. Damien stared at him. So thank you. The words were worse than hatred. Ethan straightened. You gave me the truth before you could steal everything. Damien began crying. Not elegantly, not silently. His face collapsed. His breath broke. Please. Ethan turned away. I already thanked you. Richard Cross never received a private meeting. He demanded one. Threatened for one. Offered money for one. Ethan refused. Richard's final image of power disappeared inside a courthouse. Former allies testified. Employees produced records. Officials returned bribes to save themselves. His properties were seized. His accounts vanished. The old man who had controlled careers with a phone call now waited hours for a public defender. Vanessa pleaded guilty to fraud, conspiracy, theft, and falsification. Damien accepted a deal that required testimony against his father. Then Richard's lawyers used Damien's testimony to shift blame back onto him. They devoured one another exactly as Ethan expected. No loyalty survived. No love remained. Only bargains, blame, fear. Months later, the Cross Network building reopened under a new name, Open Signal Media. The old studio had been stripped. The stolen chair removed. The walls rebuilt. Ethan refused to place his office there. He kept the warehouse. The leaking roof had been repaired. The concrete remained scarred. He liked the scars. They reminded everyone that the empire had not begun in marble. It had begun in abandonment. Open Signal became larger than the network that tried to destroy it. Its investigations removed corrupt officials. Its documentaries won awards. Its membership crossed every projection. Its employees became owners. Its sources became protected. Its enemies became cautious. Ethan never returned to the role of perfect romantic hero. He stopped explaining himself. Stopped offering strangers access to his wounds. Stopped confusing sacrifice with love. One evening, he sat alone in the original warehouse studio. The red light above the door turned on. Millions watched. There was no grand announcement, no proposal, no ring. Only Ethan. He looked into the camera. Years ago, I made a call. The audience became silent. I expected to hear the woman I loved. He paused. I heard the man helping her betray me. The old clip had become infamous. People knew every breath, every word, every second silence. Ethan continued. At the time, I thought it was the worst moment of my life. A faint smile touched his mouth. I was wrong. He lifted a glass of wine. It was the most honest. Across the city, Vanessa watched from a narrow room. Damien watched from another. Richard watched from somewhere colder. Each heard the same voice. The voice they had mocked, used, tried to silence. Ethan raised the glass toward the camera. Some people call betrayal a tragedy. He took a slow drink. I call it an introduction. The broadcast ended. The red light went dark. Outside, the city glowed beneath the night sky. Ethan stood at the window of the warehouse where his second life had begun. No applause followed him. He needed none. Behind him waited an empire built from every knife pushed into his back. Ahead of him waited a world that finally understood his silence. He looked toward the distant tower where Vanessa and Damien had once raised champagne to his destruction. Its old sign was gone. Its windows now carried the light of open signal. Ethan smiled, cold, calm, untouchable. People speak of karma as if it arrives from heaven, he whispered. His reflection stared back from the glass. But heaven is slow. He finished the wine. Sometimes karma needs a patient hand.